Welcome to the masterclass, The Cover. This is for someone who has gone through something that has had a striking moment in their life of feeling that this old sense of self has been stripped away by something maybe very sudden, kind of dramatic, and we're left with feeling, what next? How do I move through these emotions? How do I process this? And then how do I keep going? And this masterclass was inspired because of something that I've recently gone through that felt like the most ultimate and brutal betrayal with family that has really been throughout. And really coming to this moment and reckoning and recognizing that things are just not going to be the same. And so through that, I've had to sit with myself and I really observed my process as I was going through it. And this is everything that I teach. And I thought in this messy middle, as I'm moving through rather quickly, because I've done this practice so many times, that it would be worth sharing with you and just talking about what it feels like to go through it. When we talk about alchemizing emotions and moving through things and letting things go and this embodiment and all the ways that we talk about energy, but they never really feel either concrete or practical enough because we don't really have the language to put them into steps. And there really isn't steps that you can take, but there is a process that you go through, and there's a way that you have to just digest and alchemize the things that are going through, because a lot of times it really might not have anything to do with you, even though you might be at the center of it. And so with this masterclass, I want to get into the carving, either something that has happened to you indirectly, directly, or something that you know you have to make a decision in doing and processing in that way so that you can take that energy, that raw fuel, and turn it into something creative, turn it into something beautiful, if you so choose. So I want to get back into this idea in this place that we've had where, maybe you've had a career path that didn't go the way that you thought. You've had relationships that didn't end the way you thought they would, or they ended in a brutal truth that there was just no other way but seeing this new reality. And you have to figure out what to do next. And you start to see over time, sometimes we build structures in our life that seem really good and comfortable at the moment, but they also, over time, can cage us in. And we have to learn how to carve through that and have a truth to us and a truth about where we're at in this place and time, look at that as authentically as possible and be able to do something with it, not sit with it or wallow in it, which I was the best at, make excuses for, but have a clear, precise way in which you carve out the old and you bring in the new. And you take that energy that's for you, that's yours to use and control, and put it in the direction that you want. Because now is a really important time in history that we've never experienced before. And the capacity and the ability and the skill to be able to move and regulate, which is regulating emotions. I know people go back and forth on this, but you have to. You have to learn how to do this. And we don't talk about it enough, or we talk about it in the vague sense of constantly filtering your feelings, the feelings that you have, and the sentiment in the world, how people are looking at you, all while still trying to move forward. And the faster we can get through this, the faster we can detach from things that really don't don't give us anything and waste our time, the faster we can get into creating the things that we want. And so when these moments happen in our life, we tend to have this very sharp moment. And it's a shock sometimes. Something happened, something was said, something was done, something was revealed. And there's a moment where you know you can't go back to where it was. You know that everything has changed from this point on. Who you are, your identity, what you're about, now just has a different lens on it. And you're sort of left with a truth revealed and something that you can't unsee, and figuring out how to go past that point, how to rebuild from that point, how to pick yourself up and keep going from that point. But before that can happen, there's another process that has to happen with what you just experienced. And so sometimes when we feel like something inside of us has gotten stripped away or carved to never be returned, There's this rawness that comes through. There's a rawness that exposes you to the core of yourself and really the depth of your soul. Because now you're sitting with pieces of you that you probably haven't met in a long time, or maybe even you've never met. What happens after the betrayal? Does that change the value in who you are? Does that change who you are in the world? And you sit with those. And so I want to get into, as you go through something harsh like betrayal, or even something like burnout, or through the quiet erosion of years where maybe you were living in survival mode and you weren't really following what it is that you wanted to follow. And there was just this stark moment of reality. You really need to look at, who are you at the core of that? And there's something about the identity that comes through. We're really looking at who are we and what identity do we hold in this world? And really, who are we at the core? That will never change no matter what the circumstances are. And so I've learned over time that there's this messy middle that starts to reveal wisdom, where wisdom starts to begin in this place. It's in the trenches of going through those emotions. How are we picking up the wisdom, the lessons, the things that we needed to learn about ourselves, about others, about discernment, so that we can take all of that wisdom, get it out of there, and then really be able to detach and move on. And so over the years, I've been fine tuning this alchemizing of tough emotions, right? We're always processing things in our life. And it's only when we can look at past situations and the memory of them doesn't trigger us anymore that we know we've attained real growth. And even if we feel a sliver of emotion in the memory of it, it never shifts us back to that whirlwind of emotions that we could easily get into or that we were a long time ago. And so because we were never really taught how to let go and move past it, we either don't know how to sit with the emotion or take what we really need from it and let it go. And so at this moment in time, as things are shifting, as humans are evolving, the skill is going to be even more profound in those that know how to really let stuff go and carve away what doesn't serve them and use that energy. It's not just about letting go and forgetting it. It's capitalizing on that energy because it's real raw fuel. And so we need to be able to see our emotions. We need to be able to see ourselves in all aspects, understand our thoughts and that internal landscape, and really understand that these are nothing more than energy. This is all energy. So when we get upset over things, it's a really great place to stand back and observe of just that connection that you're having with the energy and the attention and the focus that you're putting on something that isn't going to result in anything like happiness, like satisfaction, like wealth building, like personal development. We're just opening up. We're keeping that wound open over and over again. And when we understand that the thoughts and the emotions are energy, we realize that this is a daily practice, that we have to work on ourselves and work with ourselves and work in this process all the time because we're constantly deciding, where do I want to put my attention and focus? What do I want to spend my energy on? Because that is the most valuable currency I have in this world at this time. And so I want to be really mindful about where I decide I want to interject my own life force into. And I don't want to keep putting that energy into situations that don't serve me anymore. Even when I'm still hurt, even when I still feel betrayed, even when I still feel disappointed, even when I still feel uncomfortable and hurt and all the things. And so when we understand and we can extract out that pure energy, we can put it in creative expression. And creative expression is not just creating for the sake of creating. It is designing, it is building, it is crafting, it is making, it is producing everything in your life. Your health, your wealth, your wellness, your relationships, your romance, your intellect, everything has to have energy put into it. And so we want to be really mindful about where we spend that time and how we think about creating. And if we want to have a creative life, we really want to be mindful of the nuances of where we put that energy. And so when we can sit in this process and hold this, which we'll get into what that looks like. And we see in this messy middle, we can start to unravel the truth and look at it without it hurting our feelings, taking it for what it is, taking that gold, being able to shift perspectives, being able to understand different perspectives simultaneously, and having this higher perspective, which is what we want, to know that there are two separate sides and both can be true. And learn how to work with that, learn how to leverage that insight and make a decision on your life for that. So let's talk about how to alchemize your thoughts and your emotions into pure, raw energy at your disposal. So anything that you do in your life is most likely going to be heart-led. And when they're heart-led, that comes with emotional waves that you're going to have to go through. The highs and the lows of leading with your heart and doing something that you love and being able to handle the emotional waves that come up, being able to not control them, but allow them to come through, allow them to teach you the nature of yourself. And through that creates a mastery. That's where you really yield power because you work with it instead of trying to push against it or control it. And this is how you've built yourself before. If you've ever had these types of breakdown moments, these like tower moments, and this is how you're going to eventually build again. But now there's articulation around it. The more we understand this process, the more we practice this process, the faster we can get through things. We're not bypassing, without deflecting, without covering up and hiding and pretending that it doesn't exist and putting on rosy colored glasses. No, it's with it, and then molding it and turning it little by little, bit by bit. And so we first have to recognize that underneath those wounds, the conditioning, the professional self, there's a version of you that really does already know what you need. And so this is where we hold space for the emotions and let it run its course. The betrayal, the anger, the resentment, the darkest of emotions need a place to be seen by you and only you, not by the world. A place where you can really investigate what's going on inside. And so for me, when I work on this practice, and I had something happen not too long ago that even though I knew it was coming or I knew that it was in their nature, it still hurt. And I had to look at my whole life, the people that were in it with family, and look at it as like, this was really a lie. I'm separate from them. I'm not one of them, while still knowing that that had nothing to do with me at the same time. And so there's a lot of old memories that I'm going to go through and look at, and every exchange, every interaction. And there became a point where that had already run its course, but I still had a heaviness. I still had a weight on me, inside of me. And I had to go within and I had to strip apart and strip away all the different thoughts, conversations, people, things that had happened. It's in the past, they're done. Put them to the side and just sit with the feeling of whatever was left. And what starts to happen is when you start taking people out of the situation, the actions were done, the decisions were made, that now sits in the past. But I have to carry something. And especially when we don't feel like we may get justice in the situation, or we may not feel like we're going to get some sort of action, some sort of retribution for it, some sort of closure for it. We have to sit with that energy and we have to take care of it. We have to let it run its course. Grief comes when it wants to come, and it will hang out as long as it hangs out. We don't hold on to it and grip onto it because it feels safe or comfortable in that process or whatever that is. But I allow for it to sit and be with it and just see what comes of it, if anything. And the soothing comes in. The nurturing self to inner child relationship starts to come in. And we hold that. Because at the very bottom of that is disappointment. Usually at the bottom of any of it, it's disappointment. Something didn't go the way you thought it was going to go. Something that you expected to happen didn't happen. Something you thought was real wasn't. And there's a dissatisfaction, disappointment. And that will change over time. But we want to use that to start turning. We want to turn that energy. We want to let the heaviness pass without holding on to it. We want to let the mood shift, but don't linger in it. We want to let the mind clear without keep playing over the scenario again and again. Because we know the sun's going to rise up and we're going to have a new day in front of us. And we're going to have to ask that question again. What's next? Who am I? And what's next? And so when you're sitting with that energy, with that emotion that feels uncomfortable, it will start to dissipate because it's allowed to be seen. It's allowed to be held. It's allowed to be cared for and nurtured. If you need to have a moment on the couch and roll up and be cozy and kind of shut things down for a little bit of time, a few moments. It's not forever. And in that time, that energy, there's still going to be something within you, a little bit of rage, a little bit of emotion, a little bit of anger, a little bit of sadness, but now we've detached from the scenario. We've put them to the side because we're separating the thoughts, the thoughts really that are making these emotions, and we're just stripping away its purity, at its purity, so we could do something with it. And again, this is where the molding starts to happen with the energy. Because while all those feelings of hurt are still circulating around, there's another aspect of you that wants to focus and put your attention somewhere else because we're not focused on that old past scenario. And we're still dealing with the hurt. So we want to shift it in a direction that betters our life, makes us a better person, makes whatever we're doing better. And it's really at this pivotal moment when you're sitting with the emotions, when you're thinking about things, not trying to think about things. When you ask yourself what's next, when you ask yourself, what is it that I want to do next? You're going to have really two options in front of you. You either take that energy, that center that you've just cleaned or that you're trying to clean, and you either put it towards something that is beautiful that you create in your life, or you put it towards destruction, revenge, envy, anger, and you destroy. And it's really important that we take the time to do this practice, to just sit with it and be honest with ourselves and build that relationship, because you don't ever want to bypass it. I don't want to push it to the side because it will bubble up. It'll grow. It'll turn into something else. It'll turn into things that you don't want to deal with. It's better to deal with this now and convert the energy and to start moving it in a direction that you want to move it into. And so I want to take this a level deeper. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but this relationship that you have and going within and dealing with your emotions is you nurturing your inner child. And so I want to give you some visuals, a reference, an idea to start working with as you start processing and dealing with heaviness and emotions, and you want to carve out what no longer serves you and really be precise with where you put your energy. And so this came to me in a vision, and it really like solidified what work I've been doing and how I've been putting things together. And so I want to walk you through this idea that as you connect to your inner child, it is really a portal to your higher self. And so when you're working with these emotions and you're moving with your energy, right, there's a level of self-reflection and self-identity that's happening here. When someone's hurt you, you tend to question, those situations tend to have you question your value, your worth. Why would anybody do this to me, right? We go through all that. And it's really how you see yourself and your value and your essence in conjunction with how the world sees you, how the situation's played out, and can you detach from it? Can you still stand in this place of integrity and strength to know that no matter what's going to happen out there in the world that might get projected on me, I still stand in the same space. I still live the same life that I know that is in my highest good, with my standards, with my integrity that works for me without trying to hurt anybody else or control anyone else. That doesn't change. And what's hard is if you are living that kind of life and you are really good and you're disciplined and you work hard and things happen, we tend to want to think, why me? But the world's, the universe, energy is impersonal. It is not a personal attack on you. It is just everyone else's nature working simultaneously. We're all in a big soup and we're all connected. And that's why we affect each other. But when we get deeply hurt, especially when it's somebody that's close to us, someone that we've let in, it tends to be the inner child that has gotten hurt, that gets the cut, that might feel something that they had felt when they were younger, when you were younger. And it's the adult self in us that needs to tend and heal the wound. And so that relationship is really important when we think about moving through emotions. We're also moving through aspects of ourselves. And we're engaging the inner child in a different kind of way so that we can really access the higher version of ourselves, which is the inner child growing up. This was one of the most beautiful things I had seen lately in a vision, in a meditation, when I was moving through this energy, feeling deep betrayal, feeling like the abandoned child, going through, sitting with myself and just feeling. And I really felt that, like, that inner child coming in. And then I usually do visualizations of seeing myself as an adult, nurturing, being the mother that I would like at that moment. But a different vision came in because what I had to look at was the people in my family that didn't like me, didn't accept me as one of their own, saw something in me. And that if I had known a while back would have saved me a long time. And so I sat with that. Can I see myself past the jealousy, envy, whatever it was? Can I see that bright, golden little child that probably looked a certain way that they were intimidated by? I don't know. I don't know how you could be intimidated by a child. And then I started to see, what if that inner child was untouched? No markings from the world, no deep cuts, impressions. There's no criticism, there's no parameters. And that sweet child of God grew up into its full adult self. And there standing before me, inner child to this adult version of that child, was my higher self. And I just took a step back in myself. And I really just sat there with it. And I saw the small child, larger adult, small child, larger adult. And I realized that this is really a gateway. Because we were children, we have memories of being childlike. We have memories of that. So that is really easy to tap into. That small, vulnerable, sweet soul of yours that's nested inside of you. And if you just took that version of yourself that you could see as a child, without any of the scars, the wounds, the trauma, the backstory, all that stuff, take that away, wash it away. And just imagine that sweet little child just grew up with everything it needed. It needed all the love, all the wisdom, all the insights, all the care, all the nurture. Everything was put into that child and it grew up. That's your higher self. That's ultimately where we strive to go, to be the embodiment of that version of ourselves. And when we can connect in that way, honey, nothing's going to shake you. Nothing's going to break you down. You'll always be able to alchemize your emotions because you're filtering it in the highest level of energy. You're filtering it in the highest perspective possible. But it is a process, and it doesn't get you out of feeling. It doesn't hurt any less. It just hurts a little less longer. And that's a really important part, that that trust you have with yourself, the honesty you have with yourself pays off. And then you start to see when other people go through it. And then you start to see when other people project on you because you did the homework and you know what it's like to go through that process. And when we project unconsciously and do things sometimes unconsciously because a lot of people are asleep, that's okay. Everyone has their journey. But when we do the work and we know how to move that energy around, it looks like magic. It looks like things just happen seamlessly, that nothing ever gets you down. And that's not the case. You don't let it get you down. You give yourself enough space. You give yourself the comfort that you need while the emotions are moving through you. And once you're steady, you get back up and you keep going. And you know that there's always a pathway in. Either way, you want to go higher self to inner child to higher self. But there's always an access. I'd go first with the inner child because that one is going to tell you exactly what you're excited about. And that's really the navigational system. The higher self gives you the perspective of seeing above. Now you can see perspectives on both sides and make the most elevated decisions in your life. When you connect to that inner child, when you connect to yourself, when you connect to that rawness of who you are, that's where source creation lives. And that's the fountain of youth. That's the place where you pull your deepest seeds of wisdom and your highest levels of inspiration. And it is a place that is the clearest, most aligned version of who you actually are, no matter which level you're looking at. And this is the place, like this creative cave, where you can go and you can alchemize and mix and move things around and figure out how to convert energy into a direction you want it to go. So anytime someone tries to trigger you, or you get triggered, or you get these moments, take a step back and really look at them as fuel, as you've just gotten a potent dose of energy. Process it, alchemize it, and then with that momentum, do something with it. Do something outrageously fantastic for yourself. Not out of vengeance, not out of revenge. There's nothing wrong with being angry, just directed in the right place. Something you'll look back on 5 years and feel like, I did something wonderful with that. And when you understand this relationship between yourself, your inner child, and your higher self, and use whatever language you want, I just wanted to give you a vision of it, you get a permission slip. Because now you have a team that you're working with that you can consult. And you have a permission slip to work with your nature because you're allowing the nature to be in its natural rhythm, its natural state. And you're not working against yourself. You're not trying to control it. No matter what period of life that you're in, whether it's feast or famine, but you always know to direct the energy first inward before you direct it outward. And you stop caring what other people's perspectives are of you because your perspective of you and your identity is locked in. Even when you change, there's a core in you that will always be you. You have many seasons, you have many cycles, but you are always, there's always an essence of you. And because of that, because you have these situations that come in, because there's this striking moment and this carving that has to happen in life where you have to remove things from your life because they don't serve a purpose, because the thoughts don't serve a purpose, the emotions don't serve a purpose. You're then called to carve out your own path. And you need navigation in doing that. And the navigational system that's already internally wired in you is this. It's this guidance. It's your heart and your mind connected in the same space on the same page. Your intuition is open. You understand what lights you up from your inner child. The adult self will always make sure the bills get paid. There's the responsible adult that will always make sure things get taken care of, but the inner child kind of leads the way. And you balance that out. But this is the real way that we want to build life. This is the real way that we tap into authentic, sustainable, creative energy for whatever it is you want to do in your life, for everything that you want to do in your life, everything that you think of, everything that you desire to do is creative energy. And we tend to like to hold ourselves back because the majority of people hold themselves back, and there's a lot of people in that comfort zone. So it's really hard to push out of it. So if you're having a really hard time right now, I feel you, I see you. And sit with it. Sit with your inner child. Sit with that sweet young version of you that just needs to be nurtured for a little bit, and it will pass. It will pass. You will get through it when you sit with it. And start taking that energy. We're not going to waste it. We're going to take that energy and really think about what would just light you up to create it. Because you always have a choice. You destroy or you create. Life does not happen by accident. It gets designed. It gets created. And it gets created from a precise understanding of your own nature. That is the only way you're going to get something that you love. And it cannot matter what anybody else thinks, what anybody else has done to you, whatever the situation is, no matter how wronged you have been wronged, how hurt you feel, there's always an opportunity to shift and get what it is that you want. Be the person that you want to be, live the life that you want to live. We know it's not easy. This place is not easy. It's hard, but it doesn't have to be hard all the time. And we can get through the hard things quicker when we understand how to move through and we see things for what they are. So I hope when you face these situations that you seek to create and you seek to build something beautiful and not destroy too much. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful to you. It was helpful to me to record this and share this with you and talk a little bit about emotions, alchemizing, and how do we create no matter what conditions that we're in. So if any of this landed for you that felt really real, I'd love to invite you to follow me on Substack or YouTube, where we go into long format content, and you can follow along with me in this journey, as well as get aware of any upcoming events that I have going on. So this is just the beginning of the conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.